Welcome to another episode of Purpose Today. I'm your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I'm very excited to be joined by our special guest today, Kirstin Austin. Kirstin is the Chief Learning Strategist of Meadow Consulting LLC. You don't want to go anywhere. This is going to be a power-packed episode where we're talking about leading with purpose, unlocking game-changing learning and development strategies. If you're a leader in an organization, you'll receive some valuable tips that will help you to posture your organization for success and receive mission enablers. We'll be right back after these sponsorship messages. Today's episode of Purpose Today is brought to you by Purpose Today Global and the Purpose Professionals community. If you're a professional who wants to network with like-minded, purposeful professionals, join the Purpose Professionals community on School. This community is specifically designed for professionals and entrepreneurs who are intentional about aligning their profession with their purpose. If you desire to pivot to pursue your purpose, grow your career, develop or purposefully align your business, the Purpose Professionals community is for you. Scan the QR code or visit the school community and search for Purpose Professionals. Welcome back to Purpose Today. I am so excited to have a very special guest today, Kirstin Austin. Kirstin is the Chief Learning Strategist of Meadow Consulting LLC. And prior to beginning her federal government career, she had 15 years of experience as an entrepreneur and consultant to various private sector corporations and entities. She served as an executive in the federal service, and Kirstin previously served as the Associate Director of Total Force Management at the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Director of Talent and Organizational Development at the Department of Defense, and held senior leader roles as an executive at the Department of Homeland Security and Government Accountability Office, and recently retired from the federal government after serving as the Chief Learning Officer at the Department of the Treasury Internal Revenue Service. Welcome, Kirstin.
April, thank you so much for that kind welcome. And I am delighted to be here today with you and your guests, and especially delighted to be talking about training and development, learning and development, and aligning your own internal purpose and mission with the goals of your organization.
Thank you so much. Well, it's just certainly a pleasure to have you here. And I know that there's so much value that everyone who's watching today will gain, after hearing all the insights that you're going to share. And I know that I gave a brief, background about you and your expertise, but I want to give you the opportunity to share with our viewers so that they can have an opportunity to learn more about you. So can you share about yourself with our viewers, please?
Yes. Okay. I'd be delighted to. So, I started my career as an instructional designer. So I've been through the full gamut of roles in learning and development. And I was fortunate to work in a small consulting firm that did consulting in instructional design and performance management for government, private sector, and elsewhere. And after my experience there, I did form a small business with a business partner, and we had that for about 15 years, again, increased my experience, and I worked in training and development. That's my bread and butter, instructional design, but also in organizational design, organizational effectiveness, competencies, career paths, and all those associated items that all lead to preparing employees to perform mission. But interestingly enough, when you asked me for leading purposefully, you could say, well, why did you leave private sector and go into government? And it really was about purpose, because I had been a consultant. I could see inside these organizations, be they private sector or government. I could see inside them, and I could see, but I couldn't see the full implementation of project. Because, if you're a consultant, you leave. I couldn't see it. And I could see the dedication and mission focus of the people in the federal sector. So I thought to myself, I really want to experience that. and I want to be aligned with a powerful mission. So I thought back, you think back to your role models. Well, I had a number of role models in my life, both family and associates who had served in the federal sector. You know how some families are military families. My family was a civil service history of serving the public in various capacities.
That's awesome.
So that was why I made the move over to government, was so I could be aligned with a powerful mission and feel that I was really aligning myself and moving forward my career that way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, thank you for the commitment that you made. You saw an opportunity for you to serve in a greater capacity. And I really like what you said about having the experience as a consultant and not being able to continue to see the growth and the development after you completed a project. So, I really appreciate your service, and for, everyone who's watching who is serving in civil service, people who are serving in the military, and people who are serving in other forms of public service, firefighters, police officers. We thank you for your service as well. And so, I know that you've had a lot of successes, both with your business in the public sector, and even now with your business with Meadow Consulting LLC. And I know that, leaders sometimes face challenges. There's different challenges that they face with learning and development. And sometimes there's challenges that occur with training plans, and you have to be flexible. So with your experience that you have with a thriving business, with your expertise in both the private sector and public sector, what are some emerging challenges that you believe exist, or opportunities with learning and development overall?
Sure. So I've been thinking about this a lot, about what are common challenges, because they often are in common between government and private sector. We're experiencing the same tumult in the workforce because of AI, or desires to either hold staffing steady or to even decrease it. And we're all experiencing those challenges. So this can take a couple of forms that I've seen. One major challenge that the learning and development field can face, and is increasingly facing, is you make a planned and vetted training plan for your coming year. And you get it approved, all the stakeholders have signed in, and then something will change and you have to radically alter it, or even alter it in part. And what this will happen and that's because of everything that I just said is going on. AI, desire to hold staffing steady where you can't hire, you've got to retrain, all these things. So what you have to do, one of your first challenges as a leader, is keeping your team aligned even when the plan is changing. And I think that I have learned over the years that the number one thing you can do as a leader, if things are rapidly changing like that, after everybody was like, I'm all aligned, we're marching this way. No, got to march this way. The number one thing you can do as a leader is, one, hear people. Let them have a chance to talk about how they feel about it or the challenges they see. And two, is keep them aligned to mission. It's normal. Human reaction is that you made all these great plans. They're beautiful. Everybody's signing. You feel like I did everything right. And then it changes. It's a normal human reaction to, some people will be mad. Some people will feel defeated. Some people will feel apathetic. All these things are normal. So, and then you also have a small group who will be like, oh, good, let's roll up our sleeves. And I'm excited by a change. So you can't expect people to not be human, right? They're going to be human. So you give them safe places to vent what they're feeling. So that's not to your stakeholders. That is not to the public. You do not want your team going back to the business owners and complaining to them. No,
right.
It's got to be in a team. Give them a chance to talk about what are the challenges they are seeing. And then everybody will acknowledge we've done that and we're going to move to what is next. The most important thing you can do next is keep people aligned to mission. What about this change? There could be a very good mission reason this changed. It's not all just capricious. How do we make sure we're serving mission? If you stay aligned as a leader and you reemphasize how you are seeing this aligned to mission and how they can adjust their resources, which could be time, energy, whatever, could be budget, to meet that mission, then you will keep people aligned and on your side.
Absolutely. Now, you said a lot of great things, Kirstin, that I want us to unpack a little bit.
Sure.
You know, you talked about AI, and we'll get into that in a little bit. You also talked about the importance of ensuring that that the team is not going to relay information to stakeholders, but that you're giving them a way that they can communicate, and you keep the ongoing communication and you align it with the mission. Are there any specific communication approaches or strategies with how leaders can ensure that they're keeping the lines of communication open, they're giving an opportunity for team members to express, you know, their concerns in a positive way so that it's not counterproductive and it's not a complaining session?
Right. Well, this is why you do work on all your communication avenues all the time. You don't wait until there's a problem. So as a leader, you will have empowered your managers and their supervisors under them to be having constant communications with their teams and their customers. So yes, you're going to have an executive committee. Like, for example, in my previous roles, I would have been running the executive stakeholder sessions. We would have been at a high level, getting people committed. But where does where's the real juicy bits is down at the worker level. So they've got to have, so for example, in many organizations we have the executive structure. You have to, where it doesn't have the imprinter of, yes, this is official, you can go forward. But you have all the working groups that are the specialty areas that your team is working with your customer on. So maybe they're working with them on knowledge management. Maybe they're working with them on a very particular technical training project. Maybe they work with them on the leader development pipeline, you know, from team lead all the way to executive, whatever it is, they have specialty groups, and then those are ready to go and you can communicate through them. Now, I will point out that the most healthy thing is if your people, from your senior managers all the way down, have really healthy relationships with their partners in the business units, because that's who you're serving. There's no reason for you to be there if you're not serving the business units. They can have those off the record conversations, because the people in the business units probably have feelings too, if things have rapidly changed. But they can do it in that safe area, and it's not out, you know, it's the personal relationship that's so important. And then you have the working groups, the formal decision making. And then of course you might have, depending on your organization, you know, you utilize your internal intranet for articles. I can't believe how many times something we think we've communicated over and over and over, like through channels, we finally get the article published in the intranet. But I didn't know that this was available, because that's something people look at because it pops up. So those are all things. Make use of all of it.
That's great. And you said something, you know, having it go through the process and now it's published and people aren't familiar that it was even released is a problem. So that's another that really reinforces what you were saying about the communication and the importance of communication and even sharing, you know, what's going to be released. Now, you also shared about keeping things mission aligned as things are evolving. And so I want us to unpack that a little bit more too. And again, we're going to come back to the AI piece later, because I think there's probably people who are watching this who are wondering, well, what do you do, you know, with AI and how do you implement AI in best ways? But we're going to unpack more about what you were saying about staying mission aligned.
Yeah.
I think because that's key. It has to really go back to, you know, the mission of the organization. So what are some approaches that you believe that, you know, people who are involved in instructional design, people who are organizational leaders, what can they do to help them to really stay focused as things continue to change, to stay focused on the mission, but also developing the personnel?
Yeah. This is a good one. So I picked up a phrase from a colleague, I think about 10 years ago, and she said, training is a mission enabler. And I love that phrase. So I'll thank her. Her name was Lena, my colleague, if she happens to be watching this. And the reason that is so important is, hey, I started as an instructional designer, right? Shout out to that community. Yes. I know how much we love all of our steps of instructional design. I know how committed we are to the adult learner, but teams of instructional designers, and this is whatever aspect they touch, they might do videos, they might be doing AI assisted instructional design, they might, whatever they're doing, videos, classroom, on your computer, whatever, real time, asynchronous, whatever they're doing, they're very committed to the adult learner. What will make it for the adult learner? Sometimes it can be hard for them to let go a little bit of their training and their beliefs on every step of the instructional design process and realize you've got to move faster for the sake of the organization. So one of the main things I do is, because I was an instructional designer, I can totally associate with those teams of adult learning experts about how they believe in this and they're right. These are principles that work. But in a real world situation where you've got to adapt and you've got to adjust quickly, I can get them to see we've got to provide that value for our business partners. So how do you align? You remind them, what is the mission? Have them articulate it. What are we supporting? I can refer back to my experience at IRS. Obviously, serving the taxpayer, huge. So if there's a rapid change, how do we make sure we're preparing employees to serve the taxpayer? That's our number one issue. If it was for employees who do that. This could be for any organization. If it's leader development, how do we ensure that leaders of all levels, from team lead all the way up, are prepared to properly manage and lead their teams, their units, their divisions? So you bring it back to that for them, and you can share words from your senior leaders, reminding them of why they're there. I'm just going to say one thing about public service. One thing, when we talked about purpose driven, one thing I loved about public service, I swear it's 95% of the employees you will encounter are dedicated to serving the public. Yes. They believe in serving the public. They know who's paying those taxes. And for example, when I was at IRS, they bring in 95% of the funding that goes to all the other, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, HHS, whatever you're interested in. So if you can pull on their desire to serve the public, that really helps with alignment. Now, if you're in private industry, people may be interested, they may be motivated by, this is such a fascinating product. I love being on the cutting edge of this product. You can always find what's people's intrinsic motivation.
That's good. That's really good. Now, you said something earlier. There's so many things that you said in this that I think are great for us to unpack. You said there may be times that it's important to accelerate, the rollout, really going back to the mission. So I know that people are talking about artificial intelligence and how you can use artificial intelligence tools to save time, to save resources. And so there's a lot of different schools of thought as it relates to AI and using AI. What is your perspective on some of the benefits, or maybe some of the things that organizational leaders need to consider or know when it comes to implementing AI tools and systems as it relates to learning and development and instructional design?
Yeah. I'll hit on three things that I think are really are going to be really powerful in this arena. One would be speeding up the development of materials. That's kind of an obvious one, that you could, write a script for instructional video faster, write a job aid faster. Whatever you're doing, you could do it faster because you can input your data into AI. Now, you still need your subject matter experts and your instructional designers to own that process and review everything. I have seen this in action. These tools are amazing. I saw one recently that was somebody had built an instructional design AI tool. So it wasn't just go to ChatGPT and say, write me a training plan. It was like you would put in your input and because it's the prompts have to be very structured. Yes. Beautiful system. You still have to go and check it, because what's the phrase? The AI can hallucinate, or it can make the wrong assumption. So you still need, one of my themes is, do not fire all your instructional designers yet. You cannot, you got to, but you speed it up, and your subject matter experts have to check everything. So that's one. Two is something I mentioned earlier, there is a government and private industry wide trend to not backfill positions as rapidly. right? So you're holding staffing steady or even letting it naturally go down through attrition. Some places are doing layoffs. We know they are in government, but private sector, some of them aren't doing layoffs, but they're letting the attrition go down. So you've got a finite pool of employees. So using AI to help you train up those employees that might need to be redeployed to a different part of the organization, that will be gold. Now, because people may very well have to move people around if they can't hire them. Then third would be another aspect of workforce planning. You could say, well, everybody can't take to the training that well. Is third, you could do competency and skills assessments with AI to create a skill bank. So you can, with AI, quickly look at what's my pool here, what's their aptitude and their skill base for being retrained and redeployed. That's also gold. So those are my 3 things that I think are really hot for the training and development community right now. And they all still require humans.
And, I'm glad that you pointed out the need for humans to provide the review based on their subject matter expertise, and the shortfalls that exist, with AI. And you said something earlier that I have to highlight. You said the prompts. Because the success of what is output with AI often is based on how well the prompt that is given to the AI platform or tool, is. So any other, I guess, things that leaders need to know as it relates to a pitfall or a potential shortcoming related to AI?
I think if you're going to embrace AI in the learning and development space, you're going to have to invest in creating, purchasing or creating a tool that will have these built-in prompts so that it tells you, put your this raw content here, put your objectives here, or have people work through objectives together with the AI. So investing or purchasing in a training and development specific AI tool, crucial. Otherwise, it'll be all over the place because you'll be trying to talk to Chat GPT or whichever one you use. And it won't be very efficient. So I think that's well worth the money to purchase one or develop the one that works for you, depending on your organization's input. So that was part one. And then what was the second part of your question?
So really just, you really answered it, okay. what the pitfalls or shortfalls are, anything that leaders need to be aware of if they're going to implement it. So you answered it. So thank you.
Okay, good. I would say it is good to play around with, if you just said, help, use AI to help you write a presentation or something, that starts giving you a feel for it. So I would encourage everybody to do that. Your organization doesn't have to have purchased a customized instructional design. You can play around with it and you'll see what some of the pitfalls. One of the most interesting things I read about AI recently is if you rely on it too much to do all your thinking, it dulls your own thinking. And yes. And I really want people, because you're learning and development professionals and you are dedicated to the adult learner. We have to keep our brains stimulated. And if you outsource all that, it will dull you. And I'll give you an example. I was playing around with AI, helping me write a presentation. And I asked it, there's a number of presentations where I've used Clara Barton, who was the founder of the American Red Cross back right after the Civil War. I asked it to develop a slide for me about some of her career highlights. And it did. But when I read it, it really is dulling the way it writes. So caveat. Now I know it'll get better, but I don't know how fast it'll get better. So
thank you for that insight. Now you talked a little bit earlier, you mentioned a little bit about purpose, and you also talked about how a lot of employees who work in the public sector, they're usually dedicated. And, we talked about being mission aligned, but I want to talk about your perspective, as it relates to the importance of purpose and passion and, both in our careers and our lives in general. And what is your perspective on how organizations can, support professionals being aligned with their purpose and their passion, while also bringing the best value to the organization to ensure that both are aligned?
Oh, that's a really good way of saying that. It's funny, when you were talking, what came to mind, which will seem tangential, but I think it is central, is as the leader, if you're the leader of your team, other way, everything from a small team all the way up, if you're an executive, as a leader, the behavior and treatment of others that you tolerate will be seen as the values you are endorsing.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. So if you let people treat each other poorly, they're like, okay, well, that's what this organization is about. It's dog eat dog or whatever. I'm going to backstab. And it is human nature to try to adopt to the norms of the group. So if you want to encourage instead people to be pulling on their best instincts, one, believe in people, because start with the assumption that most people are good. They are. Most people are good and they want to do a good job. They might have the wrong assumption about how to do a good job, or they might have their energies misaligned. That doesn't make them a bad person or a bad employee. They just need some coaching. And by coaching, I don't mean that formal executive coaching process. I mean the leader investing the time on having conversations with them and giving them feedback that's useful and on the spot. So bringing out the best in people is making sure everybody gets a chance to be heard appropriately. That doesn't mean you have like an all hands meeting with 200 people and everybody talks, because you couldn't do that.
Right.
But like in their small group. And you can have, I held many 200 plus all hands where we took questions in advance and answered them and then looked at the chat so people could hear what we were saying. And I got so much appreciation for that. The very fact that we would collect questions and answer them live made people feel more aligned and more heard and more seen. So you as a leader, you've got to bring out that inner motivation. People have to be seen, and people want to be seen in different ways. Some people would rather be in a small group and have their work buddy quietly work on the side to bring out their best ideas. Other people, I want to be the one presenting, look at me. And I can have that tendency myself. And everything in between. So you've got to bring out the best. And that means that, you hear people, but you do hold them accountable. They have to be held accountable. It's not all about just good ideas. You've got to be held accountable. Are we moving forward and meeting our goals? And people appreciate that. People hate it if somebody's over here just thinking of ideas and doing no work, right? So it's both your alignment and what are the results we're producing. And then what did we learn from producing those results? Did we make a mistake? Of course we did. We're human. What was successful? Let's celebrate it.
That's good. That's really good. So you talked a little bit about making sure that leaders identify, the balance, right, between what someone just really enjoys, what they love, but then also balancing, what's necessary, what's needed, and then being careful to show, what is important, what they value. And by either valuing something, it could send a message either in a good way or in a negative way. So I think that's good. I think it gives a great thing for leaders to evaluate and to reflect on. Now, I want to pivot a little bit, and I want to talk more about some of the things that as a leader, as an instructional designer, being able to look at the performance and the successes and being able to see, what needs to be reinforced and when to move on. So which battles are worth fighting and what's worth, moving on. So I know that organizational leaders in any sector, private sector, public sector, nonprofit sector, there are emerging changes that do require us to sometimes pivot. So what do you believe is the best strategy for leaders and executives who are and learning and development professionals to really take as it relates to the metrics and the measures when they're facing changes, or, when they should remain, positioned for success? Where's the balance?
Mm. Isn't that the challenge? I think that you've got to look at what are your leaders concerned about? What are they being measured about on, and what do they need you to do? I used to have a direct report who would say to me, "My priorities are your priorities." So meaning like, what are your leaders telling you are a priority? Now, does that mean that you abandon all instructional design principles, all adult learning features? No, you give good briefings up the chain that say, if we take an extra week and we're able to incorporate this aspect of adult learning principles, you'll get this better result. But you can't argue it from the point of view of some kind of theoretical purity. It has to be, what is the result they're going to get? The other thing that you don't do that will keep you focused on moving out, is nothing's ever completely dead. You could present something and your leaders could be like, well, yeah, that'd probably be better for the learners, but we don't have time, so forget it. You put it in your back pocket, your metaphorical back pocket, stored electronically. You pull it out again. I can't tell you how many times I've been able to make use of good ideas that first got shut down. You keep them and you morph them and you keep going. So the balance is, what is it they're trying to achieve? What are they going to be measured on? What are you going to be measured on? And how do you make sure you're presenting to senior leaders the pros and cons of what they're asking you to do? And then, no, you don't just keep fighting just to fight, because they don't understand why in the world you're fighting for adult learning principles. You move out. And I'll tell you, even though, I've led big groups of instructional designers who are very committed to the theoretical underpinnings. They want their leader to present the base case and then make a decision and move out. The worst thing you can do is nothing, because then everything's just floundering around. I got so much feedback. I'm so glad you made the case for us, and then you told us to move out.
That's good.
People want to be busy. They want to contribute.
That's good. Now, I am so excited for you in what you're doing now, because, you just talked about the importance of people wanting to contribute, people wanting to bring value and bringing ideas and bringing solutions. And I know that you are bringing so much value to clients. So I want us to pivot and talk more about your business, Meadow Consulting LLC. I'm so excited for you and regarding your business. And I know that your business provides services to clients, and there's so many ways that you can help. So can you just share with viewers on, the services that Meadow Consulting LLC provides, and how you help clients?
Sure. I would say the number one way I help clients is in some of these areas we were just talking about, which is alignment of your learning and development efforts to support mission. So as we started saying, you can make your best plans, things change. So I have been advising in my most recent clients, I've been advising them, how do they take their existing products and services and adjust them to this changing marketplace? So that's things like, nobody's doing any hiring for the next year. People want to redeploy their employees. So how in the world do we do that? So I can, and I have successfully advised people on how to take their existing products and services, be that something they're offering to somebody else or internally, and make sure they're meeting the moment. So it's updating your strategic alignment, keeping focus on mission. I also advise on using competency models and assessments to do workforce planning, aligning your curriculum paths, and all those things that save time and money and help people feel seen because they've had an assessment and they're given a way to develop. So it is bridging that between the individual learner. Learning has to happen on an individual basis, but it has to be tended like a garden to get people going in the right path, that they're going to support the needs of the organization. Those are some of the major ways that I advise clients. And the point is to get the most out of your limited dollars, available staff, or your contract dollars. Like, are you buying curriculum or whatever you're doing, that you're going to get the most benefit from it to move your organization and your mission forward.
That's wonderful. Now, if there's someone who's viewing and they want to to reach you, they want to reach out to Meadow Consulting LLC, what is the first step that they would need to take?
Yeah, I would say you can either look at my, there it is, my LinkedIn page, and you can send me a message there. Or you can also send me an email. You see my email there. I'm happy to get have an email from you, and check out my LinkedIn page. You'll see some other videos I've made. And I'd be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I know we've talked about a lot on today, and I feel like we could keep talking. So you're definitely going to have to come back and be a guest again on Purpose Today. So one additional question, that I want to just to make sure, is there anything else about your business, Meadow Consulting, or anything about you that we haven't covered today that you'd like to share?
I guess for the so I've had a long career, and I would say no matter where you are in your career, the most important thing you can do is know yourself. And apparently there's the legend that the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greek had a sign up that said, know thyself. Knowing yourself is so important, because then you are acting out of your own values and your own internal mission. And it is difficult as a young professional to do that, because you're trying to adapt to the organization. You're not even sure, what's motivating you. I encourage you to think about that. What are your internal values? What's driving you? What are you bringing? So, are you bringing something we talked about earlier, which is like, it's important to always treat people fairly and with respect.
Yes.
Or if you're in public service, it's really important to me to serve the American taxpayer. Make sure I'm not wasting money. I'm doing things that will give them value. And if you're in private sector, I'm really invested in this product. This product's really going to be great for our customers. Maybe you're in, biomedicine, and you're going to make some huge breakthrough, or you're, developing whatever it is, and that you really believe in that. Then you can take your personal alignment and apply it to that situation.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Thank you again, Kirstin, for being a guest on Purpose Today. I know you're going to go backstage. I have your contact information on the screen. Anyone who wants to reach out to Kirstin, find out more information about Meadow Consulting LLC, her email is there, kaustin meadowllc@outlook.com, and then the LinkedIn profile is there as well. So this has certainly been a wonderful discussion. We always appreciate all of the engagement for those who are watching and engaging in the chat. And I do invite you to stay tuned for another episode of Purpose Today. I'm very grateful for all of you who have viewed on today. And for anyone who is watching this episode, if you are someone who feels that you need to pivot professionally and you're not quite sure how to do so or where to start, feel free to send an email to admin@purposetoday.com. Again, that's admin@purposetoday.com. Thank you all for tuning in for this very special episode of Purpose Today with our special guest, Kirstin Austin, as we have talked about leading with purpose, unlocking game-changing learning and development strategies. If you've heard something that has been of value to you, I encourage you to type in the chat, and I encourage you to subscribe to Purpose Today at Purpose Today and at Dr. April D. Dobson on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. Make it a purpose-filled, amazing day. And I'll see you on another episode of Purpose Today.